In the annals of history, the grand tax invasion of 1888 stands out as a monumental failure. Now, let's wind the clock back to that time, to the bustling city of Chicago. A city divided by a river, yet united by the sheer will of its people, was about to witness the construction of a bridge. This bridge was more than just a physical link. It was a symbol of progress, a testament to human ingenuity, and a beacon of hope for a city ready to embrace the future. As the blueprints of the bridge came to life, so did a unique plan to finance its maintenance. The officials, progressive in their thinking, decided to impose a toll. But this wasn't just any ordinary toll. It was a tax designed to strike a balance between the rich and the poor. The affluent were to pay more, while the less fortunate could cross the bridge for free. A noble idea indeed. But how could one quickly determine who was rich and who was poor? Shoes, they decided, were the answer. In the year of 1888, shoes were a luxury, an adornment worn by those with wealth. The officials, in their wisdom, decided that anyone crossing the bridge wearing shoes would pay the tax, while those barefoot could cross for free. Simple, easy, and seemingly impossible to avoid. It was a scheme that on paper seemed brilliant. Yet like a ship sailing towards an unseen iceberg, it was headed towards a colossal failure. This ingenious plan, born out of a desire for equality and fairness, was about to face a harsh reality check. The rich, in their resourcefulness, found a way to sidestep the tax by simply removing their shoes. And the poor, in their desire to avoid the stigma of poverty, wore shoes or borrowed them to cross the bridge. But this seemingly brilliant plan was destined for an unexpected failure. And so, the stage was set for one of history's most intriguing tales of tax evasion, a story that holds lessons still relevant today about the complexities of human behavior and the challenges of progressive taxation. What transpired was something the officials never saw coming. In the heart of Chicago, the newly erected bridge stood as a testament to human ingenuity. It was more than just a structure. It was a symbol, a physical manifestation of societal division. The tax system was designed to be progressive, a financial scale where the wealthy would bear more of the burden. The idea was simple yet ingenious. Tax the shoes. In the late 19th century, footwear was a luxury, a clear indicator of affluence. If you were donned in shoes, you were considered rich and thus obliged to pay a tax. The barefoot, on the other hand, could traverse the bridge freely, a subtle nod to their financial struggles. But the best-laid plans of mice and men often go awry. The rich, ever resourceful, found an unexpected loophole. Instead of paying the tax, they simply removed their shoes, crossing the bridge barefoot, just like the poor. The officials watched in disbelief as the wealthy shuffled across the bridge, their shoes in hand, their wallets untouched. Meanwhile, the poor, who were initially expected to benefit from this system, reacted in a way that was equally surprising. They didn't want to be seen as poor. They didn't want the world to know their struggles. So, what did they do? They wore shoes. They borrowed shoes. They found ways to cross the bridge with their heads held high, even if it meant paying a tax they could barely afford. The bridge, instead of being a symbol of progressive taxation, became a stage for a silent play of pretense and pride. The tax invasion plan, designed with such careful thought, crumbled. It wasn't the complexity of the system that led to its downfall. No, it was something far more unpredictable. Human behavior. The rich found a way to stay rich, the poor found a way to maintain their dignity, and the officials found a lesson in the unpredictable nature of the human spirit. And so the grand tax invasion plan crumbled, not due to its complexity, but because of the unpredictable human behavior. From this fascinating tale of the 1888 tax invasion, several key lessons emerge. Our first lesson is the loudness of poverty. It's not just an economic condition, but also a social stigma. In our story, the poor did not want to be perceived as such, so they wore or borrowed shoes to cross the bridge, announcing their status for all to see. The second lesson is about the mindset of poverty. Poverty is not just a state of being, but also a state of mind. It drives actions and decisions, even ones that may harm us in the long run, just like the poor who borrowed shoes to cross the bridge. Next, we learn about the spending habits of the rich and the poor. The rich stay rich by not spending. They took off their shoes to avoid the bridge tax, demonstrating frugality. The poor, however, stay poor by spending. They would rather pay the tax than be seen as poor. Then we touch on the irrationality of humans. Logic would dictate that one should not pay unnecessary taxes. Yet the poor chose to do so out of pride, and the rich avoided it out of thriftiness. This goes to show that human actions are not always guided by reason. We also learn about the superior financial advice of the rich. They knew how to avoid the tax and keep their wealth intact. This is a reminder that access to sound financial advice can be a game changer in wealth accumulation and preservation. And finally, we see the complexity of taxing the rich to help the poor. The bridge tax was a well-intentioned but flawed idea. It tried to create a progressive tax system but ended up failing because it didn't consider human behavior and societal norms. These lessons, derived from a failed tax invasion, still hold relevance in our society today. We can see them playing out in our daily lives, in our communities, and in our policies. So let's take these lessons to heart and strive to make better, more informed decisions for ourselves and for our society. In the world we inhabit today, the echoes of the 1888 tax invasion still resonate. We see its reverberations in our societal attitudes towards wealth and poverty, and in our ongoing debates around income inequality and taxation policies. Remember the rich Chicagoans who simply doffed their shoes to avoid the tax? This mirrors today's affluent individuals who find loopholes in tax laws to minimize their financial obligations. It's a testament to the fact that the rich, often equipped with superior financial advice, stay wealthy by avoiding unnecessary expenditures. On the other end of the spectrum, the poor Chicagoans who borrowed shoes to cross the bridge bear similarities to those amongst us today who live beyond their means to maintain a facade of prosperity. The act of borrowing shoes to cross a bridge is a metaphor for the idea that poverty is not just an economic state, but also a psychological one. It speaks to the lengths people will go to avoid the stigma of poverty, even if it means perpetuating their own financial hardship. Let's also consider the officials' attempt to implement a progressive tax, a concept that's still hotly debated today. Their approach was well-intentioned but flawed. It's a stark reminder that taxing the rich to aid the poor, while noble, is a complex endeavor. These lessons from the past highlight the irrationality of human behavior, especially when it comes to money. They underscore the need for comprehensive and fair taxation policies that can't be easily exploited. They also emphasize the importance of societal attitudes in shaping financial behavior. So, as we navigate our modern world, let's keep the story of the 1888 Chicago Bridge in mind. It serves as a mirror reflecting our own attitudes and responses to wealth, poverty, and taxation. It prompts us to question our own actions. Are we, consciously or unconsciously, borrowing shoes to cross our own bridges? Just like the people of 1888 Chicago, we may still be borrowing shoes to cross our own bridges. Indeed, the 1888 tax invasion story is more than just a historical anecdote. It's a tale that offers us a valuable perspective on the complexities of wealth, poverty, and taxation, underlining the often unexpected outcomes of well-intentioned policies. Let's reflect back on the key points. The Chicago Bridge, built in 1888, was a connector between two parts of the city, but it also became an unwitting stage for an unusual social experiment. The officials proposed a progressive tax where the rich would pay more to cross the bridge. The determinant? Shoes. Yes, shoes. A symbol of wealth in that era. If you wore shoes, you paid a tax. If you were barefoot, you crossed for free. But the plan backfired. The rich, in a testament to their financial acumen, simply took off their shoes to avoid the tax. And the poor, in an attempt to not be seen as poor, would wear or borrow shoes to cross the bridge, a clear indication of the human desire for dignity and social standing, and a stark reminder that poverty is not just about lack of money, but also about perception and mindset. So what does this 19th century story teach us about our 21st century world? The lessons are profound. Firstly, poverty is loud, and it's not just about being without, it's also about being seen as being without. Secondly, the desire to appear wealthy can sometimes lead to irrational decisions. Thirdly, the rich often stay rich by not spending, while the poor stay poor by spending. And finally, the idea of taxing the rich to help the poor, though noble, is often fraught with complications. These tales from the past are not just stories, they are mirrors reflecting our societal norms and attitudes, our triumphs and our failures. As we journey forward, may we remember the lessons from the past and strive to not just borrow shoes, but to build bridges that are accessible to all.